Got to do a thing. Do that thing. Hello, Internet. This is my forehead. Hi. Good afternoon, everybody. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it may be when you're watching this. We're so glad to have you back. We took a little bit of a brief hiatus. This is our Expedient webinar on ransomware protection and prevention. And today with me, we have Expedient Chief Operating Officer, John Rosenson. I'm very, very excited to have him here. Real quick though, we need to do some quick promotion and housekeeping. If you have a question, please enter that down about here into the Q&A box. That helps us keep track of the questions, make sure that they get answered. If you ask a question, you're entered to win a $50 Amazon gift card. And also, this is a chance for you to get kind of into the minds of people like John and myself from our standpoint. So feel free to ask things even outside of the ransomware question. Also, make sure to follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/expedient, instagram.com/_expedient, linkedin.com/company/expedient. Give us a follow on all of those. It helps us. It helps you keep up with us and what we're doing. We have a ton of stuff coming for the rest of the year here. Also, if you need to step away or missed anything, you'll get a link to the recording in your email. You can also find our video on all of those social platforms. And with that, I will introduce John. John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, AJ. It's great to be here with you with such a timely topic.
Yes. By the way, we're both coming to you live from our Allegheny Center Mall headquarters, which is really, really great. I'm actually quite happy to be back in the office. I've seen John multiple times this week. So John, it's great being back with everyone. But we're here to talk about ransomware, and ransomware is a very, very popular topic right now. But we see a lot of topics because we see the Colonial Pipeline hack, we see all of these various like ransoms come out, and everybody's trying to figure out how to actually deal with this. Are we making a big deal about nothing? We have a lot of customers using our services. What are we seeing from our customer side and client side around ransomware? Or are we just making a big deal out of nothing?
We're definitely not making a big deal out of nothing, AJ. Expedient's been providing disaster recovery as a service and backups for many years. And those are some of the main protection mechanisms that we have for ransomware. And we've seen the veracity of those kinds of events increase significantly just in the past year from clients, not only that we manage, but those who are not managed. So we're getting it from all angles.
Now, are those clients, big clients? Are they little clients? Like, how often is this happening? Because it seems like if you watch the news that it happens every second of the day. But how often is this really happening in our sample size that we have?
Yeah, it's regular enough that it's concerning, and concerning enough that I have become more of an advocate to our existing clients that don't have some of the services that I already mentioned and some of the others that I did not, that they should seriously consider them because it seems to transcend company type and size. We have anecdotes from all sorts of organizations that unfortunately have been impacted, but we have a great track record of helping them get through it.
So when we start to dive into the actual recovery, how does Expedient help? Because I think there's a lot of times where you just say, ransomware attack, and there's some sort of mystical process that happens in the back end from a media and news standpoint as to who's actually doing things. What actually shows up, and how do we show up to our customers and clients in their time of need?
Yeah, I think you and I talked about this a few weeks ago, and the best construct that I think we came up with was the one that's used by the National Institutes for Standards and Technology, or NIST. And we sort of summarize it to three categories. We want to help protect, we want to detect, and then if we have to, we want to recover. So Expedient provides a number of services that are generally available in IT to do all those things, and we curate a finite list of those that we're very familiar with and have a good track record of using successfully, again, to protect, detect, and if we have to, recover after a ransomware event.
So when we talk about protection, how do we actually help a customer protect themselves? Because it seems like ransomware is a matter of when, not if. So how do we actually help a customer protect themselves up front?
Yeah, definitely. I really, when I talk to clients, I tell them not to underestimate the fact that they could be a target at any time. From our standpoint, we use a number of different tool sets. Endpoint protection is one thing. So think as simple as antivirus that would be on your server or your PC, but maybe even more is behavioral monitoring, and we have some of those tools as well. Firewall is something that we believe every client should have, a dedicated firewall cluster for the client's environment to be able to not only protect, but also with some advanced services detect. And then finally with microsegmentation. Microsegmentation is a technology that enables us to look at network traffic on a normal day and sort of benchmark it so that we can determine when anomalies occur so that we can have a chance at blocking them.
And then you mentioned detect, because it's one thing to stop it from happening up front, but things happen, things get through, and it doesn't necessarily come through directly from external sources. It can come from internal as well. So how do we detect when one of these attacks is happening in the first place?
Well, kind of what I said about the capability of microsegmentation, when you have things like a SIM system to look at all of the attributes that are happening in your environment and look for what is normal and understand that ahead of time so that abnormalities stand out so that you can get alerts on those and take action on them as quickly as possible before they have a chance to become a bigger problem.
And you mentioned earlier behavioral monitoring. Kind of what does a behavioral monitor, what is that really doing? Because I think when we think of, antivirus and behavioral protection, we think, hey, this file comes in, file is bad, file doesn't get to run. But what happens, in a behavioral monitoring situation? How are we actually using that to do some protection and even detection?
Well, again, if we're able to understand what normal looks like, we can generate alerts and/or we can take automated responses in order to, for example, isolate a file. Or there are even technologies that allow you to, quote unquote, detonate a file to determine if it is malicious or not. So there is a lot of sort of heuristic technology that's available these days that hasn't been in years gone by that we can take advantage of for the behavioral analysis of the network and really the environment as a whole.
And I think one of the other pieces to this that we're seeing is that there isn't just one sort of tool that does everything, right? You can't just deploy one thing and ta-da, you're protected from ransomware. When customers are really, trying to do these sorts of things, those are the sorts of tools that have been missed. So let's say that those tools aren't necessarily in use. How are we helping customers recover from some sort of attack?
Yeah, and I think this is sort of the last line of defense, AJ. If something does slip by, which is possible, no safeguard is going to be 100% perfect, and new vulnerabilities and security vectors are being discovered or invented all the time. The most simple way to recover would be to have backups, but backups are also the longest recovery time. And for most of our clients, the data loss and downtime is a significant driver of business negativity. Clients get a poor experience, employees get frustrated, and potentially real damage or harm is done to the relationship. So from the perspective of being able to recover more quickly and with the least amount and potentially no data loss, we have disaster recovery as a service. The two have a similar outcome in terms of getting clients back up, but they use very different methodologies. Disaster recovery as a service, which we've been providing for a number of years, replicates data as close to real time as possible to another location and provides certain attributes and capabilities to prevent that replica from becoming the victim of ransomware, so that recovery can happen sometimes in as little as a few minutes.
So we've talked a lot about tools, and we know that time is not exactly something that everybody has, right? We do appreciate all of you taking the time to listen and learn from from our experiences. But John, where does an MSP like Expedient come into play in terms of being able to assist with that recovery?
Yeah, and I think this just boils down to what you just discussed about time. This is our business. So this is the thing that we focus on. And for better or worse, we have a lot of practice and experience protecting, detecting, and recovering from these kinds of incidents. And I think the average business doesn't get the benefit of that experience. So we get to see across many types of businesses, many types of impacts, and many types of outcomes for the business based upon the amount of protection, detection, and recovery that they've put in place in their environment. And we know that when the right complement is in place, which we've sort of determined based on all of our experience, the rate of recovery, the speed of recovery is very high. And although these kinds of incidents can be scary and can be detrimental in some way, getting out of them becomes a lot less of a challenge with a partner that has that kind of experience.
And this is something we've done before, because all of these tools and building this and configuring it and getting it in place can be a lot of work. So how does Expedient make this easier? What have we done to try to help customers through this sort of security process to get to where they want to be?
I think what it comes down to is we've made a lot of choices already based upon our research, development, and experience putting together these kinds of solutions. So we've essentially curated a finite number of technology solutions or products that we've put together in such a way that makes it easy for our client to consume and easy for them to rely upon us to do the things that they're not familiar with. So when you work with a provider that has these capabilities, you'll be able to get the assurances that you have the protection, detection, and recovery capabilities without having to make significant investments to create it from scratch. You'll benefit from all of the work that we've done and the experiences that we've had before you've taken advantage of that service.
And I think that's the bigger key, is that it's not just a set of tools, there's a set of people too, right? We've helped a number of our clients who have had ransomware attacks. You can actually go to our website and look up our National Auto Care webinar, where we talked with the CIO from National Auto Care around how we were able to help them get back up and running in about 48 hours. It's a really powerful story to understand the difference between I have tools to do a recovery versus I have tools and a group of people who do this all the time to help me through doing that recovery. And I think that's the bigger thing here. It's not just a set of tools and a set of capabilities, but a set of people as well. And I think, John, we have hundreds of people who are in our operations and technical staff to help build, maintain, and support these going forward, along with supporting all of our end clients. And I think that massive amount of people to assist businesses of all sizes, right? This is effectively almost like a staff augment at some point, right? Of here are people you can lean on to help you through some of your more challenging times.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, AJ. I'm effusive about our people, but most importantly, anyone can buy software, but until you have a system or process tested and validated, it's just another piece of software. And the benefit that you get from all of the experience our people have really can't be denied.
So I think here we're going to let's take some audience questions. I see the first. We have two questions that are it might have been written the same way, both ways. So what is the most common vector or entry point used in ransomware attacks? And John, I'm sure that we're probably going to come to the same answer. Might as well just say them at the same time. 1, 2, 3 phishing attacks.
I was going to say people.
Yes, it's people. People are by and large the main reason why any of these sorts of things happen, because the entry point is the weakest link. And I'm sorry, but our people are our weakest link, right? This is why phishing attacks are so successful.
Right.
Every major attack you can think of probably started with somebody getting a phishing email or someone clicking the link that you can't necessarily stop. These are the sorts of challenges, and we have an entire blog series coming on various attack vectors and what you can do to protect yourself against them. So things like email filtering to prevent phishing emails from even getting to users to click links, and then having web reputation firewalls to be able to say, hey, this website that this person's trying to go to, that's not a thing somebody should be going to at our company or really ever. And this is a way for you to protect them on the way in and protect users on the way back out. So I think that common attack vector from that standpoint can be a really, really easy way for customers to get in, or for customers to be phished. Have any of our customers been affected by ransomware, and how did we help them recover? That question came in before John and I told stories about how we've actually helped customers recover. It is a combination of the set of tools and the people, and being able to have that. In fact, the National Auto Care one they used our DR as a service, they used our backups, and then we had someone from our operations team, our support team, on the phone with them, helping them do recoveries. And that additional person was there making sure that their things came back up and online. We also had the flexibility to provide resources for them to recover into, to know that they were going into a clean environment. So there are a number of capabilities that go along the line there. So John, from replication, how do we protect against ransomware when it comes to replication? Because I think that's one of the things that comes up when it's hey, bad data has gotten in, now what happens? And I think we can talk about backups from there.
Yeah, so when you're talking about disaster recovery as a service, you have the greatest capability there to prevent it because of the way that it works. You can think of disaster recovery as a service. Some of my colleagues can consider it like a DVR, where you can roll back in time to the exact point prior to the ransomware causing the problem and have your environment reconstituted from the last known good point, because it's happening in near real time. With backups, that's possible, but there's going to be gaps, right? Backups typically are happening usually about every 24 hours. There's at least a differential or incremental backup occurring. And so you can piece back to the last 12 or 24 or 48 hours ago. But sometimes that's way too long of a gap for clients. So that's why we recommend the disaster recovery as a service for those really mission critical workloads, to ensure that that gap does not exist. And for others, a day is not a big deal. There might be some data loss, but that might be worth the cost benefit analysis.
And I think to the actual technical question around replication, the Zerto replication does everything in journals. So yes, you can replicate bad data. That's a thing, right? It is taking the blocks as they change and replicating them over. But one of the things you can do is, with the journaling, go back in time. And this is why we always recommend backups plus DR as a service as a ransomware recovery technique, because yeah, that replication may have been bad the entire time, and you need to go back further than that. And that's where the backups can come into play. Maybe you catch it, before that replication actually happens, but you can go back in time. It's not like you're always going back to the point of failure or the point of attack. You can go back potentially further than that. We also have here, what's the ideal size client for Expedient? Is there customers that are too small or customers that are too big? Kind of what do we have here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I typically say, and this number might floor some people, our typical client is has revenue from the tens of millions up to the low single-digit billions. And we do have clients on that continuous spectrum. And there is no customer that's really too small per se, but it is a matter of the investment that the client can afford to make. Because we provide a premium service with management, our clients need to be able to justify the cost of that based on the value that they assign to their data, their applications, and their business in general. So we serve very large clients that are brand names that you'd recognize, but more so, we serve smaller clients that you may have not heard of. And that's probably specifically related to the fact that smaller companies don't typically have the wherewithal to do the curation that we've done of these types of technologies. But you'd be surprised as well, in much larger companies, while they may have a lot more people or a lot more sophistication, they really want to outsource that DR or backup function because it's more of a thing that they've got to have, but it's not differentiating their business. So they want to save their people to work on the strategic things that are going to make their business different from their competitors.
Yeah, and that's the one that we see a lot is the large businesses, the large customers. We have customers who have thousands of virtual machines. We have customers who have 2 virtual machines, right? It is not necessarily a big or little and how can we help them. It's what that business gets value out of. And John, the smaller companies, they need help, right? They need as much help as they can get to be able to do the things that they want to go do. Larger organizations want to take their existing staffs and point them towards more valuable propositions for their business, like app modernization or technology projects that actually generate revenue for the business, and less I need to keep the lights on and maintain my backups and make sure that my replicas work. So that's really where it comes back to, is what is the value proposition for the business. With the rise of MSPs being targeted, how as a customer or potential customer, how do we know that Expedient is not compromised? See the Kaseya attacks, the SolarWinds attacks that can potentially have downline implications for MSPs.
So 2 things I'd say about that. The first is that we are transparent about vulnerabilities when they impact us. Excuse me. We will notify our clients. Secondly, we publish attestation reports annually about the key software that we use, and hardware for that matter, in our service. So clients can sort of have that list and check it off themselves. But Expedient is not a small business MSP. So we're not using the out-of-the-box, what are called remote management and monitoring, or RMM tools. We're using more enterprise-grade, again, products that we've curated. So while a smaller MSP might use an all-in-one solution, we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket. And originally, our reason for doing it wasn't to prevent against vulnerabilities. That's a good side effect. The reason for doing it was to find the best solutions for each main function area that we needed. So we've built some of our own solutions, and we've bought some of the solutions. And we've done that in a way that works for our business in order to scale it to serve thousands of organizations.
And I think additionally, we work really hard with making sure that when we hear vulnerabilities that they are patched. Obviously, the Kaseya attack, the Kaseya and the SolarWinds things, they can be things where we are also kind of at that mercy. What we try to be is, as John mentioned, is as transparent as possible, and try to make sure that our customers know what we have, what we're using, when things need to be patched. Obviously, all of those, we're a VMware powered cloud. All of those vCenter vulnerabilities that came out in the last month or 2, we had to go out and go patch all of our vCenters, and we did them in a very, very short period of time. That's the whole reason you would use an MSP, is because we have the time, we have the people. It is literally our job to make sure that infrastructure is maintained and secured. So for us, making it easier for our customers to be able to know that their workloads are protected and secured, and that even the vulnerabilities that exist are patched in a very, very timely manner, I think is really important. I think that's actually the real value proposition of an MSP. And sadly, these sorts of things are happening, and we try our best to avoid them. we use your backup as a service utilizing Commvault. How protected are these backups for protection from ransomware? And so from a Commvault standpoint, we can talk a little bit more deeply about the way that we replicate them and the way that they're written to disk. We protect our Commvault, our comm serves from everything. So it's very difficult for individual users to get to said comm serve. We try our best to make sure that everything is secured all the way down the line. From a backup standpoint, Commvault, right? The way that Commvault writes its backups is a secured manner already, but we can definitely talk more. And if you want to reach out to me, aj.kuftic@expedient.com, we can actually, get with our SMEs to have a more deeper conversation about that.
And if I could add to that, AJ, just from the client's perspective, if you're using Commvault and you're wondering how protected are those for me to be able to recover, that has to do with your retention time period. So the longer you're retaining backups for gives you a little more resilience. And then also off-siting them will provide some additional resilience. So if you're doing most clients are doing a standard 2 or 4 week retention, and usually that's good enough because you're going to know if you got ransomware. It's going to happen. It's going to happen, and you're going to know pretty quickly.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we do, and we kind of like to talk about this and think about it's not just backups. We've kind of joked that ransomware is the new disaster, right? We always talk about, when we talk about disaster recovery, we think of big natural disasters and maybe even a backhoe tearing up a fiber line, which are all very physical things that can happen. Ransomware is a logical disaster. Nobody's breaking anything. There's no giant storm that's going to roll through and ruin everything and ruin your day. It's something that is very, very quiet that's happening inside of your systems that can cause this problem. I do want to thank John for all of his time today. This has been really, really great, John. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap up here. Javier Pelham is the winner of the gift card. One of our marketing friends will be reaching out to you with the gift card. So congratulations to Javier. And in 2 weeks, we will be doing our next webinar, which is with Cloudian, where we will be showing the object storage epiphany and how that plays into things like data protection and file storage and the way that we run our cloud file storage platform. That is a special 1-hour presentation with Cloudian, and you're going to watch me draw on a whiteboard. So this should all be very, very fun, and I hope that my drawing skills are up to the task. With that, we will wrap up. Thank you so much for your time. Again, you'll get a link to the recording at the end of this, and we will see you in a few weeks. Thank you.
Have a great one.